What is up, guys? Welcome to the video. Today I just want to do a quick video on the topic of steroids and how much they actually impact performance in different sports, specifically strongman. Now, there are a lot of people who have done much better in-depth videos than this one on the exact difference that steroids make on average in performance, in terms of strength, in terms of athletic performance, and in terms of muscle growth. Some of the videos you guys can look at. Mike Israetel from Renaissance Periodization, he did a very good video on this. Alexander Bromley, he did a video on also covering a lot of different people who did videos on this topic. A lot of people have covered this topic in much greater depth than this video is going to, but I wanted to tell you guys a quick story from my first experience the first time I went to South Africa's Strongest Man a couple of weeks ago. In Strongman, you have many different events. You have usually 6 in a competition. Some of them are static events, which means it's about who's the strongest, right? Either 1 rep max or something like a deadlift for reps, which that's got a bit more endurance, but the point is these events are very much about static strength. Then you get your moving events and your what I call pain tolerance events. Sandbag carries, tire flips, and what we had in this specific competition is an event I call the Wheel of Pain. It's kind of like a Conan's wheel, except what it essentially is a weight you pick up with your arms and then you walk around the circle for distance as far as you can go. And the person who goes the furthest wins. This event is about strength, endurance, and pain tolerance. You also have to be very strong just to lift that weight, but mostly it's about strength, endurance, and pain tolerance. And I remember at this competition hearing the same phrase from a bunch of high-level strongman athletes who are very strong and very competitive. Guys who try to break records, right? Saying, strongman is supposed to be about who's the strongest. As we were getting ready for this event. Why do I bring that up? These guys, even guys at the top of sports performance, who are some of the best genetic specimens, and trade hard, and take drugs, are not actually training appropriately. I'm not trying to say that they don't know how to train, that they're not very good at what they do. What I mean is that these guys didn't approach this event with the due amount of respect or the due amount of input that they might have, that they probably should have. How many of these guys went and took something like Zercher walks to prepare for this, to failure with the competition weight? How many of them went and did running sets, seeing how far they could go with that amount of weight, starting to build up a tolerance to the pain that you start feeling on your forearms and your back when you have to walk these things? How many of them went through that effort? And the answer is not as many as you would think. And the reason is because even athletes who are at the top, who are the specimens, who want to win, are human. And they don't want to do the things that suck. No matter how good you get, even the guys at the top don't like preparing for the events that they don't like. If you're a static monster, and you know that you're a bit immobile and unathletic, you're not going to enjoy moving events. And because of that, you don't really like training moving events, which means you don't do too well at them, which means you don't like them. You see, it becomes this repetitive cycle. It's the inverse for somebody like me. I love moving events. Why? Because I'm kind of fast and agile by default, even though I'm not the strongest guy. And I make sure I do my conditioning, a ton of conditioning getting ready for competition. So I'm good at the moving events, which means I win at the moving events, which means I like them, which means I do them more. Right. You get into these cycles. It's very seldom that you get people who will prioritize the stuff that they suck at because that's what they actually have to get better in. Most people double down on their strengths. The reason I bring this up is one of the few negative comments, well, I wouldn't even call them negative, one of the few critiques I got on my first video saying that I was going to win World's Strongest Man under 80 kilos is all the people at the top have 3 things: fantastic genetics, hard training, and steroid use. How do you expect to beat guys who have all 3 with 2 out of the 3? And My first answer to that I want to give in this video is that most of those guys don't actually have number 2. You can look at this for examples of this in many different sports, right? If you look at guys in MMA, in basketball, MMA is actually not as good as an example, but especially in things like boxing and basketball, in different sports, and you look at what they do in the weight room, you will see that oftentimes as people who train and care about performance, they're not doing anything that is particularly worthwhile, but their genetic gifts and sometimes drug use gets them to the top anyway. In this specific case, what I'm talking about is the fact that it is not reasonable to assume that just because these people perform highly and take drugs, that they also train properly for every event and take every event as seriously as they should. Because of this example I'm giving you, where an event that can cost a lot of points is something that guys kind of, as a group, ignore because it's not an event that anybody likes. Because it's not an event that, especially if you're a static monster, you'll enjoy. Because you know smaller guys like me, can beat you at this event because it's not just about lifting the most amount of weight. The point is, it is not correct to assume that these guys have all 3 of these things in check. And yes, you can beat, like I have, people who take steroids by focusing on your weaknesses and making sure that you take advantage of the events that nobody wants to do. By making sure you take advantage of the fact that most people are not going to do what they're the worst at. They're going to double down on their assets, not their liabilities. You can make sure that you get better at the things that you suck at the most so that you can be competitive and not make the mistake these guys make by dismissing events that can cost you points. The point is, just because they're at a high level and because they take drugs, it does not mean that what they're doing is actually optimized for winning. Again, I'm not saying any of these guys don't know how to train. They obviously do. What I'm saying is that most people will choose not to spend the appropriate time on events like this because they suck. And we don't want to do what sucks. So do what sucks if you want to win. There's an answer. If you want to do better, if you want to do very well against people who train very hard, are genetically gifted and take steroids, do the stuff they don't want to do. Because very often times you'll actually end up ahead. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.